Thank you for coming back to the It's Beyond Me podcast. It's your girl, Drift Nasty.
Freddie T.
And we're going to be doing our thoughts and reactions on a video pertaining to the way that white people are expected to accept treatment nowadays.
Let's talk about what we're doing to white people. There's been something going on for a while now that we're being told not to notice. More to the point, that we're asking white people not only to ignore, but to accept the rising tide of racial hatred against white people. In the past decade, there has been a noticeable cultural shift in what constitutes acceptable speech as it relates to white people. Back when I was a kid, in the early 2000s, the mainstream American culture preached about respecting each other's differences and not seeing color. Nowadays, we say that not seeing color is racism, that you must see color. But the more I see how things are unfolding, the more I'm convinced that this is wrong. Back then, saying something offhanded about white people were seen as not appropriate, just as it would be to say something offhanded about people of any other race. But that soon gave way to our current times, in which there exists virtually no limit to what racial minorities can and do say about white people.
All that talk about nobody has the power to discriminate doesn't make any kind of sense to me. Everybody, no matter your color, shape, size, where you're from, you're able to be prejudiced against somebody because it's like your opinion against people. If you have a negative opinion on somebody, that's your prejudice. So for people to say, oh, it's impossible for anybody to be prejudiced against white people, that's not true. Everybody just love to hate us. Let's just keep it real.
I'll just put it like this. I'm an 84 baby. And I'll tell anybody straight up that from 84 all the way to the early 2000s, I have to admit to everybody, I was always under the impression that it's going to get to a point where nobody is going to care about race or color and everybody's going to be one. That's what was the teachings. That's what everybody was pushing. It was, everybody under one umbrella, everybody loving each other, type of thing. And now it just feels like it's no longer like that. It's like we're teaching all the young people to segregate themselves, to be about, oh, you're this, you're that, and classify themselves underneath some type of category, which is kind of funny considering that nobody wants a label.
And I will say that pretty much what everybody's trying to make be a thing now is that it's wrong for anybody to be prejudiced or have anything to say against anybody except for white people. And then when white people defend themselves, when they stand up and they say something about that, well, then they get looked at like, oh, well, you're just white, or, you're racist, you're white, you're using your privilege card to speak over voices who couldn't speak. And I was born in 92. Everybody's been able to speak since I've been born. So I don't understand any of that. And I'm just really confused on why they expected white people to just lay down and take that, right? Like, yeah, I will say that I've been in public settings and then things have been said out of pocket to white people. It's not like it's an uncommon thing. So I heard, things that get said out of pocket, and white people seem to be more reluctant to, lash back because they don't want to be looked at as being racist.
Well, I feel like right now it just seems like it's okay. It's not okay for you to speak your truth. That's the new thing. You can't speak your truth on anything.
Or defend yourself.
Or you can't defend yourself. And then on top of that, if you're white, you pretty much you out of luck, because at the end of the day, if you open your mouth, you either racist, a bigot, or you just exercising your white privilege, or you just don't know what you're talking about because you have white privilege. That's exactly how they put it. And it's messed up, because at the end of the day, it's like, so any rebuttal that a white person has is going to be taken racist no matter what.
I believe this is the natural outgrowth of a perverse ideology that teaches us that every societal ill is the fault of white people, and that whatever prejudice acts we may inflict upon them does not constitute discrimination because we don't have the power to discriminate. And alarmingly, this is particularly pronounced in the younger generation. But is it true?
I always hear people use this one excuse that I can't be racist because I'm black.
Yeah, you can.
Which I find real weird, because I'm African. At the end of the day, I'll tell you straight up, we discriminate on other countries, other nationalities, other tribes. it doesn't really matter. So I look at people and I say, how can you not be racist if you're black? Because at the end of the day, it just means being racist just means you have prejudice against a certain race and you feel that your race is more superior than theirs. So by having a prejudice against anything, technically you're racist. So my question to everybody is, if that's the fact, and there's a bunch of people I know who say they have a prejudice against white people, does that mean they're racist? They're racist against white people?
Yes.
Do we not have the power to discriminate? Well, let's see. First, let's take a look at the racial hatred at the interpersonal level. In today's society, it has become somewhat fashionable to think things and say things about and to white people that would not be acceptable if it was said about any other race. And we're being taught that this double standard is not wrong, that it is rather a form of empowerment. They'll attribute negative experiences that they've had with white people to their whiteness. You had an argument in line at the grocery store with a white person? They were acting entitled because they were white. A white driver cut you off when you were driving? They need to check their white privilege. Your actions, your conduct, and your existence, in other words, boil down to your whiteness.
Just in my lifetime, my own personal experiences, I have seen some racist white people. I've had some in my family that I've had to bump heads with throughout life. But I've seen more racist black people than I've seen racist white people. And that's the truth. I've heard the C word said more than I've heard the N word. And we all know the words I'm talking about. So for anybody to say, oh, well, white people are the only ones who can be racist, white people are the only ones who can do any wrong just because their skin is white, it's a crazy, idiotic way of thinking, honestly. And then it's going to lead to more problems, I feel, in the future of where people are going to be able to run over other people if it's allowed to go that way. And then because we're white, we're supposed to take it and it's okay. Nobody cares because it's a white person.
And beyond the people in my circle, I noticed that many people of color have this sort of blasé attitude, an attitude most particularly pronounced when there are no other white people around. Things are being said not just behind closed doors, but out in the open. Not just between close friends, but between complete strangers.
This blasé attitude that he's talking about is like, it's honestly there. I have to admit, as a black person, that it's gotten to a point where I've been to settings where people will openly say some stuff that, if I really look back at it, I'll be like, it's kind of messed up because this is what we used to say, white people used to say about us when we weren't around, but yet we're doing it ourselves now. And now it makes me question, like, what exactly are we doing?
Yeah, and like, from my point of view, I can't speak for all white people, but for white people who think like me, I look at it like, okay, so pretty much the whole fight about equality and everything wasn't that. It was actually to switch roles of supremacy. So you didn't want to, be on an equal opportunity kind of playing field. You just wanted to be able to seek revenge, put the shoe on the other foot.
Take a look at the things that are being said about white people, especially by the younger generation. The kind of statements people wouldn't dare say about people of any other race.
You have a token white and you're hanging out with your friend group of color. You need to ask permission from everybody in the group to bring your white friend. Like, don't just bring them. I might not be in the mood to deal with white shenanigans that day. That's all I'm saying. And another thing, it feeds into their ego. Like, don't let them think they're a good white person.
There is no reason why, if your friends are really your friends and your friends are really the friends of your friends, that you should have to ask to bring anybody around. If you're hanging out with one homeboy who's white and he's like, oh, I want to go see what what's his face is up to, you shouldn't have to hit up them unless you know that person is funny about people being at their house. It has nothing to do with race, you know what I mean? Because there are people like that.
Yeah.
We're like that. Don't drag everybody up to my house. But I'm just saying, like, unless there's somebody like that, you shouldn't have to call and ask permission, specifically for it to be a white person. Oh, is it okay if I bring my white friend over? And you know the white friend, and you don't want to put up with white shenanigans? Yeah, you're a racist, homegirl. I just want to let you know that.
Grounded is a punishment to them. That's what they call punishment. The least grounded, least balanced, most destructive race considers being grounded a punishment? Yeah.
It's white cis men who are a part of the far right-winged ideology of fascism, that is a true threat and the terrorism to this country.
All white people are inherently racist.
Yes.
Can you be racist against white people?
Based off of the definition of racism, yes, but it's not gonna hurt them and hurt their opportunities like it does people of color.
While technically you can, it's not like an issue.
You can't oppress the oppressor.
It helps you sleep at night. I'm racist to white people, and I'm proud of it.
Why do people not understand that you can't be racist to white people? It's impossible. The system is not set up that way. You can insult white people, but it is not racism. Me calling a white person a tub of mayonnaise and a flower-looking ass, that's not racist.
You went all the way to Africa to physically take black people from their homes, shove them in on boats where a lot of them got diseases and died, told them where they could sit on a bus, told them which schools they could go to, which water fountains they could use, which bathrooms they could use, and that's sugarcoating it. Those are just terms. I'm not even describing all the disgusting things that happen, and they don't even want revenge by asking for equal rights. That's it? And you're still saying no?
Some people look at that and chalk it up to the grumblings of the powerless.
By now, we know as they used to push it in the 2000s, we were going to get to a point where race was not going to be an issue. Why is it all of a sudden race is a big issue again?
Because the majority of the world isn't like a purebred, for lack of a better term. There's hardly anybody that's pure race, especially here in America. Like, it's pretty much just, it's a pot. Like, we all got thrown into a pot together, and then people went with people who, you know, they wanted to be with, whether it was their race, their religion, the same culture, or different, my people. So that's what I'm saying. It's like nobody is 100% of anything. I got Cherokee blood in me. I got Irish blood. I got some French in there too. I'm a mutt. I don't know what all is in there. I just know those three for sure.
Well, I also look at it like this. No offense to anybody. A few years back, you know, GQ magazine, it was like in the early 2000s, I think, maybe late 1990s. GQ magazine brought out an article saying that it's estimated that in the next 10 years, that's back then, they say that in the next 10 years, a person who's of any pure blood of any type is going to be a minority. Because they were saying that at the rate that we're going, everybody was going to be mixed with something.
Yeah, so...
Which was not a bad thing.
Like them girls that was saying all that stuff on them TikToks, y'all better be careful if you run into somebody like me. Because I get ignorant when ignorance starts facing me. You see what I'm saying? So if you run into somebody who is like me and then you start mouthing off stuff like that about F them just because they're white, oh, well, black people aren't mad enough at you, on you all kinds of names and stuff like that, you likely to get hit in the mouth.
So
I'm not saying everybody go out and hit everybody in the mouth. It might happen. It could happen should you go out talking reckless like that.
I've heard from somewhere that politics is downstream of culture, and I think that is certainly correct. We have a mainstream culture that tells us it's okay to hold prejudice and hateful view of white people, and our politics is then infused with this energy, and we see active, overt, and on-the-books racial discrimination of white people that those who are perpetuating this hatred is refusing to see as discrimination.
I listen to Dr. Umar once in a while, and I stopped listening to him because he says apparently the fact that I married my wife, I'm a disgrace to my race. From what he says, I'm dwindling down my race, so I'm a disgrace to them. That's how he puts it. And then I look at him and I say, how is this empowering black people? Why are we starting to give rhetoric that sounds more like a supremacy?
Yeah, because all it is hate speech, right? That's what we're all so big on right now, is whenever white people say anything is hate speech. Well, other races could say hate speech too. That is hate speech. Telling somebody, oh, well, just because you married outside of your race, you're a disgrace to your race.
They'll say, no. This is remediation. These are the same people who are making tenuous arguments that some of our race-neutral laws discriminate against people of color. And this is certainly evidence that in one side of the political aisle, people of color have more power than white people. Because if we didn't have the power, we wouldn't be able to put into place practices and policies that does this. That's what power is. Things like Minneapolis local government agreeing to a contract with the teachers union that says white teachers must be fired first. New York City's government enacting a policy of having white seniors go to the back of the line on life-saving COVID treatment. A college professor that says white people should be killed and facing no repercussions. Cornell University banning white people from rock climbing lessons. One of many instances of liberal colleges doing the utmost to exclude and ostracize white students. BIPOC only events equal no whites, but they don't have the guts to say that, even though that is what that is. Progressive media outlets do not cover these stories. Some people out there have no idea that this is going on. But worse, some others out there know but agree with what's going on.
I just ask people to open their eyes. You know,
all people.
All
Everybody
people.
open their eyes.
Actually be physically woke and not just be woke. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because the problem that's there is everybody wants to say they're woke, but nobody wants to open their eyes and actually look at what's going on around them. Actually open up their ears and stop trying to follow what the traditional norm and be like sheep.
Yeah, you're not asking yourself the questions of like why. Whatever it is that you see, you have to ask yourself why. Why is it that they're showing me this?
And for those people to convince themselves that this is not racial discrimination, they play mind tricks and word games. They use phrases and talking points like punching up. You can't be racist to white people. You can't oppress the oppressor, meaning I'm acting oppressively, but I've designated you as the oppressor, so everything goes. Or Ibram X. Kendi's infamous words, the only way to remedy past discrimination is current discrimination. Or when people say things like, what we're doing to white people is not racism because racism is prejudice plus power and we don't have the power.
Some of the stats they're not level. We know that, we acknowledge that, but majority of them have started to become level. And at the same time, it's not documented because at the end of the day, that's not what sells.
Go outside into your actual neighborhood. Go experience the living experience and then tell me how much of it you feel at home than what you're being told is going on the TV, right?
To me, it's stupid that it's 2023 and we're still having this discussion about race.
Yeah, like you feel like you have to defend yourself because of your race.
And I find it funny
dumb.
considering that people want to take away gender's classification and every other type of classification.
But not racism. That gets to stay.
Yeah.
And it only gets to stay because it serves into an agenda. If everybody is pit against each other, nobody will be willing to come together.
Exactly.
And you can't make no real change. You can't make no real difference or real progress. Not what everybody's calling progress and being progressive. No, real progress. Mm-hmm. It keeps you from doing that. And then you have to just admit it, right? Because I had to wake up and smell the roses one day. And you just have to wake up and you have to admit to yourself that you have been fooled. That you have been tricked. You have been deceived every day of your life, and you have to figure out a way to think outside of that box, and then you'll see how much differently you look at the world. And I'm not even saying all black people are racist. I'm not saying all white people are racist. I'm not saying all white people ain't, and I ain't saying all black people ain't. But I am saying there's hundreds, if not thousands, of people who have finally thought outside of the box. Who think like I do, who go outside and go according to their own experience, not what somebody else tells them that they need to feel.
Plus, what I also want people to understand is a lot of these people who say those things, it's really for clicks. They're just saying it to piss people off, to just...
Which that should make people mad too, because they're feeding off of a problem that's going on, hatred going on in the world, and then they're trying to reap benefits from it. It doesn't come from a genuine place. If they had been standing in front of a white person, or the people who say messed up stuff about black people, had they been standing in front of a black person, it wouldn't come out of their mouth. Something happens with these screens to where you feel like you are untouchable and invincible. And I'm just letting y'all know it's not true. So you have to be careful.
They use all this mind-bending apparatus to delude themselves into believing what they're doing faces no moral quandary. But in the back of their minds, perhaps in their subconscious minds, is racial revenge. We experienced it, you experienced it too. See how you like it.
So you heard it from his mouth. Everything that the media is telling you that you should feel as a quote-unquote minority or a quote-unquote ethnic person, whatever you prefer, like whatever they want you to call yourselves this month. I'm saying, from my point of view, it's totally the opposite. See, because everybody has it in their mind, right? This is just truth right here. A lot of people ain't gonna be able to swallow this. But a lot of people have it in their mind that cops only kill black people. Now, let me tell you why everybody feels that way, right? It's because If a cop kills a black person, it makes it on the news. If a cop kills a white person, it doesn't make it on the news. It doesn't feed the agenda at hand. It doesn't feed the narrative. So it's like it doesn't happen. It never mattered. And it'll always, I feel like for a long time anyway, it's going to be like that. Because now, this is the time when we're supposed to pay, right? We got to pay for shit we didn't even do.
That people of color are using our newfound power to act this way and then pretend like none of this is going on leads me to believe that we would have done the same thing that white people did were we to be in their historical position. Because such acts have its roots in human nature, not white people nature. And one can only imagine what might happen in the coming decades when the demographics of the US will have shifted such that white people will no longer constitute the majority, when the younger generation you've just seen have graduated from elite schools and hold positions of power in our institutions, our government, corporations, entertainment, news media, and so forth, how they might, in wielding the levers of society, be able to rationalize using their adult brain the hatred that was embedded in their minds during their adolescence.
Why are we, and I speak for myself, and I'm asking my fellow black people, why are we repeating the cycle of discrimination? Why are we doing the same thing that was done on us? Why are we stooping to the same level of what we were accusing other people of doing? These are the same things we used to say that white people were doing to us, but yet we over here doing the same thing. The shoes on the other foot, and we're making sure that we do it. Why?
There's big time double standards in that department. Look, I'm gonna show you a little experiment. Okay, you say black power.
Black power.
White power. Now in your head, when you heard that, what did you hear?
Yeah.
Like, what actually did you hear? Because see, if somebody says black power, well, then that's an empowering movement, right? It's empowering to them, their race, the whole nine, right?
It's the movement.
But if a white person says white power, you automatically go to skinheads, KKK, white supremacy, hate.
To the white people who are watching, I just want to say, you are not an oppressor for refusing to accept an ideology that teaches people to hate you, that teaches you that you are inherently bad, that your children are inherently bad, that you are inherently racist no matter what you do or how you think, that you need to repent by taking affirmative steps in your life to redress harms that your ancestors may have done, or the racist actions of other white people. In fact, you are not an oppressor, period. You did not choose to be born white, just like any of us did not choose to be born in our race. And to ask of you, at the individual level, for example, to give your life in service of people of color, to be used as physical barriers at protests, to give away your house to black people instead of your children, all actual things that have been publicly demanded of white people, to ask this of you is morally reprehensible collective punishment.
And pretty much that's all we wanted to say. I just want people to sit there and actually do a self-reflection on themselves and think before they act.
Stay in your own lane.
Yeah.
Think before you speak. Think before you act. Treat everybody the way that you would want to be treated.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way to say it. Do you want people coming up to you calling you names? No. So don't call people names. Do you want people to come up and hate you just because of what you look like? No. So don't do that to other people. That helps with the karmic cycle. Just give out what you want in return and watch the way that everything changes. Stop letting the media run your mind.
Exactly. Just like an old school used to always tell me, don't be a sucker. Be a professional sucker ducker. Don't let the system use you and abuse you like that. Don't let it make you into a tool.
A little puppet.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you have to understand that they want us to be separated.
And then they sit back and laugh.
Exactly. So
we're the joke. So everybody as a whole is the butt of the joke.
So that we don't open up our eyes and mount together to fight against this oppression that they've been putting against us. Because at the end of the day, right now as it sits, we are all being pushed apart for some grand scheme. And we just have to sit back and actually open our eyes and actually see what's going on.